Happy last day of the year. A bunch of you said you've really been enjoying these videos I've been making lately, so today we're gonna make pulled mushroom sliders. Need some mushrooms, preferably king oyster. They've got a really good texture to them. They're meaty, they're solid, and they strip up really well and really easy, which is great. In this case, for tonight, it's New Year's, I'm using lettuce. You can use red cabbage and make a slaw with some mayonnaise if you want to. Ignore this, that's for Eric with burgers. And you're going to need to make a sauce. This one that I made here, I prepared beforehand, so it's just a smoky barbecue marinade, normal barbecue sauce, some water, some ground cinnamon. I had this for flavoring, which was a barbecue provincial sort of salty herby mix. Some mustard powder, and what's not shown here is garlic powder because I used the last of it, and some apple cider vinegar. Just mix that up. We're going to coat our mushrooms in that once we've prepped them. Also, got to mention sugar. You will need to add some sugar in this. The barbecue stuff will already have sugar in it, but since we've watered it down a bit and we really want this to caramelize, we'll need a little bit of extra sugar as well. Prepping's super easy. You just need yourself a fork. Essentially you're going to have a couple of different parts of this. The head pieces we're just going to sort of break apart once we're done. The bottom piece here, however, it's a bit woody sometimes, so you can just kind of just break that off. Put that aside. Maybe a knife like this one might be a bit easier. They're a bit solid. As you can hear, they're really sort of a bit tough. So you need to get a fork with some long tines and just scratch into it like that. The result is you kind of get these long, stringy bits like you would in a nice piece of pulled pork. Eventually they'll start to come apart like that. My housemate's laughing at me because I'm doing a video, but
your phone holder is...
It's literally a bowl. You guys can't see it, but it's literally a bowl with some cans in it. I just needed a good angle. I mean, if you want to, go for it.
There we go. This is the holder.
This is the holder. It's great.
So it's like a dog.
Did you want to do the holder, Kyle?
No, I'm going to...
you ruined my angle.
What?
Oh, no, that's good. Okay,
I straightened it. I basically gave you an really nice horizon line.
Yeah, so if you've got big chunks like this, you just sort of tear them apart. Like, Carl's laughing at me, but people liked my videos recently and they said they wanted more, so I said I'd do more.
Okay, cute.
So yeah, you just sort of break it apart like that as you go, mushroom by mushroom, and you stick it in the big bowl, which I'm currently using to hold my phone up, so we'll come back once that's finished. It's a bit of a mess, but it's a different way of making it cooking. And it's surprisingly, I would describe it chickeny. Like, you've had chicken, you've cooked it before, you've put it in the fridge, and it's chilled back down. That's kind of like the density and texture this mushroom has, which is really kind of nice to cook with. Prepping your mushrooms. Set your oven to pretty high, like around 200 degrees or so, maybe a little higher. We're going to use those on the trays afterwards. You're going to want a pretty big fry pan for this. You want to get that reasonably hot. If you got cast iron, great. If you don't, that's okay. Just use whatever you've got used to. I'm going to be cooking these in olive oil. Don't use extra virgin. It's got a low smoking temperature and it'll get a bit burny. But normal olive oil will do just fine. Big old bowl of mushrooms. Now, I'm making a double batch. Because this is for New Year's party tonight. So I'm going to cook this in 2 waves, just so the fry pan doesn't get too full and the stuff actually cooks properly. But just bring it on over here to your fry pan, make sure it's nice and hot. It was earlier, so I took it off the heat. And yeah, just drop your mushroom in. You want a nice sizzle like that. Don't crowd it too much because you do actually want it to get a bit brown, so probably about yay full for this fry pan at most. That's starting to brown. I'm going to put some baking paper on this. Baking paper doesn't have to be perfect, just to make cleanup easier for all the sticky barbecue that's going to come along later. Also, shredding all that mushroom makes a big old mess. So just clean up as you go. here's batch 1 cooking. Mushrooms tend to have a lot of water, so you can see that steam coming off it. That's good. We want to sort of get them to the point where they're a bit drier and they've browned a bit. So, also interesting chemical note on mushrooms is that normally you'll have a sort of a gradient of how tender something gets to hard when you cook it. So like meat starts off like, get my finger in the right spot, meat will start off being, you know, sort of like medium tough and then get tender and then get really chewy, whereas vegetables will sort of start off like tougher and then sort of drop down until they turn into a sludge. Mushrooms are really interesting because they start off like a bit hard and then they drop down to like soft and then they just go up a bit and then just level out completely. So you could technically cook mushrooms indefinitely. I'm sure at some point they would degrade, but yeah, the cellular structure just means that they'll, like with hard cooking, once they release the moisture, can just kind of be cooked for a long time, which makes them really good in stews and soups. Add a little bit more oil into this. If you're worried and health conscious, you don't need to worry too much because mushrooms are really like, they don't have any fats in them anyway. This is the only way you're going to get that in this meal. So put less in if you're trying to be clean, but apart from the barbecue sauce, that's pretty much the only like saturated fats you're going to get in this meal. Yeah, just keep them sweating away there. They start to darken a bit in color. Come back once they're sort of caramelized more. Let's flip this over. Yeah, you can see you're starting to get a bit of darkening, a bit of caramelization. Like, I mean, it's not normal caramelization because there's not many sugars in it at all, but you know, it's just frying. So that's good. That's what we're after. We want to sort of stiffen up the mushrooms a bit before we get the barbecue on them. Probably the amount here is good for like 2 people. Have like a full slider each. We're obviously going to be cooking more, but just give it a good spread out, and then you want to not stir it constantly. Just leave it for, you know, a minute or so each time, just to really start to get that slight char cook in. Stir. As you can see, it's getting some nice browning there. You don't want to overcook it too much, or at least not get all the water out, because we're going to be doing the rest in the oven. So at that point, I'm going to take that out of this pan and put some more mushrooms in. Oil. Okay, while that's cooking on the side, I was going to make a quick slaw for myself because I like coleslaw. There's a bunch of different ways you can make a slaw. In this particular one, I'm just going to use some red cabbage and a bit of kale. But tonight, because people might be pickier, we're using the cos lettuce. You basically just need to make up a mayo mix. So for that, you need a little bit of apple cider vinegar. The great thing about cooking vegetarian as well is, like, I use this bowl for the mushrooms, but there's no meat, there's no cross-contamination, which is rad. Now, I'm using whole egg mayonnaise, because I'm a bad vegetarian, but just a scoop of that in there. I'm gonna add in some chili cornichon. Largely, I'm actually after this for a bit of the vinegar. So I'm just gonna nice and fine. This isn't traditional at all. Some people add a bit of dill. Ooh, dill! I have dill. Let's have a bit of dill. Dill, gosh. Dill. Dill. A bit of dill in there. On top. And I'm going to put freshly cracked pepper. Just add a little bit of a mix down. Since this is just for me, I'm just going to do a very small amount both of these. Kale. Now, kale's interesting in that it's actually a lot of people don't like it, but I really do. I find it's got a little bit of bite to it, but it is it's a rough textured planting. It's got to break down a bit first. So I'm going to use a bit of lime juice here, and I'm just going to coat the kale in that. I'm just going to leave that while I go check on the mushrooms, and hopefully the acid of the lime there, will be nice in the slaw a bit, but will hopefully break down those leaf fibers a bit. Looking good. Bit of oil. Might have got distracted a bit from these, but that's okay. So I'm going to add a bit of oil to that and give them another stir. fold that through the mayonnaise. The mushrooms again. Yeah, they've got a nice little bit of browning on them. Again, like I was saying earlier about the mushroom structure, it doesn't matter too much if you cook it kind of hard. You know what, no, actually, they're good. They're good. They'll dry out the rest in the oven. Turn that off. For those of you who don't cook with mushrooms much, that bowl was full. Mushrooms shrink a lot when you cook them. So that was an absolutely full bowl, and now that's about a third. So they'll lose a lot of weight in water. So just be mindful if you're cooking a bunch, it may seem like you have a huge amount of mushrooms, but you probably don't. So mushrooms, get the barbecue, and it goes. Give it a good stir, want a nice even coating. Don't worry, it's really gonna firm up in the oven. We're cooking them a little harder so that they get a little bit, by harder I mean at a higher temperature. Just so they get a bit stiffer and caramelize a bit more, because there's not much of the natural sort of like animal fats in there to cook it, so it'll just be whatever's in the barbecue sauce. Half each onto your baking trays. Try spreading it out a bit. You don't want it all clumped together or it won't get that nice sort of like pulled barbecue caramelization in it. So you kind of want to spread it out like that. It gets a nice even spread. Try to keep it, you know, a bit in from the edges and it'll just make cleanup easier. And into the oven. This is fan forced, so in degrees, I'm a little above 200 here. You probably only need to put it in there for probably about 12 minutes overall. Might need an extra 3 afterwards, just once we've turned it, given it a bit of turnover just to crisp up that last amount. But I'll see you in about 12 minutes. Try this. That's good. It's creamy, a little bit bitey, a little bit sharp. It's just a good mix of flavors to go with that richness that we're going to get from the pulled mushroom. It's been 10 minutes and a bit. Look at that. That might actually need a turn now, and I might need to turn the oven down a bit. It's a bit wet still. Some bits are really good. It's less so, so I think probably another couple of minutes in there. Give it that really nice sort of proper barbecue cooked flavor. Like, that's really good. Well, it's mine for snacking then. Back in the oven it goes. While that's going, I'm just going to prep the rest of the sandwich. I like nice soft hamburger buns. Now my knives are horribly blunt at the moment. Straight knife doesn't work. Let's use a serrated one. I'm going to be a fatty cake. Actually no, I shouldn't be a fatty cake. I will be part of a fatty cake. So I'm going to have a spread on just one side. It'd be better to do it that way. So put my slaw. I'm an absolute duffer. I bought more and didn't use them. Now then, not had long enough. Look at that. Looking good. We'll let them just sit here for a bit so they're not quite so piping hot. But always taste test. So let's have a bit here. Where they caramelize properly, really good. Where they're soft, here, maybe a little bit mushroomy. Nice spice to it, but might just put on a bit of ground barbecue spice on them. Just give them a bit more of that flavor. Spot on. Okay, so let's get just a little bit of this because I mostly want my friends to be able to enjoy it tonight at New Year's. A little bit of that on there. Normally when you're making a slider, you make it absolutely chock-a-block, but I'm not going to do that here. So Good. It's bitey. It's got a good mouth density. That kale's softened out now. It's got that sort of creamy aftertaste from the mayonnaise. A little hit in the cornichons is really good. Just really, really nice textured. You can make it healthy. Just really nice meal. This. That how you make pulled mushroom sliders. Just find nice end of the year. I really like food like this because it's actually pretty quick to put together. You could do this in, took me about 40 minutes total. Of that, a lot of it's cook time, so you can do other stuff. If you buy a lot of mushrooms, or you have a lot of mushrooms, you can actually make this up for a party, which is pretty good. And for anyone who's vegetarian or not wanting meat as much, it's a really, really good way to have that really nice barbecue flavor. So cheers and Happy New Year's, everyone. Bye.